My name is 2Kina4web, and I was the original project coordinator for HLID. I did the setup for the project. I had to work at getting the physical structure together in the beginning. There were things like office space and staff and those kinds of things that had to be dealt with. Setting up processes, how the money was going to flow between DOT and OHA, who were the approval agencies, and where did we all sit within the state procurement system, because these were two state agencies, and who was going to have procurement responsibilities. All those kinds of issues were my responsibility to resolve. The other part of the setup was also finding out who the stakeholders were, because as you know, when the freeway was built, there was much controversy. The freeway opened in 1997, and 3 years lapsed before we finally began this project in the year 2000. So part of my responsibilities was to seek out those people who had interest, stakeholders who had interest about the adverse mitigation. HLID by nature was always kind of a different type of project. All the agencies never had done anything like this. Federal Highways Administration across the nation had never done a project like this. We were the first one out of the block. Even though they had done mitigations in other places, the difference was that the freeway was already built, and now we're doing the mitigation. Normally, federal agencies do the mitigation and do their checks on the impacts prior to the building. This freeway was already constructed, and so we're coming after the fact. And the challenge was about not only understanding that there were impacts that we were going to try to address, but what is the process by which we would go about doing this? Trying to define that process. What is the process by which the working group could come to decision? That was a very difficult thing, because when we got all these people together, they all came from, although they knew each other, what we learned was everybody had a different perspective in some way or another. There were 4 different areas, basically land areas, and as we had discussions with this working group, we started learning that within each area, the perspectives of what should be done or what was the practice in the areas were all different. And trying to come to one understanding was a very difficult thing. HLID is a very dynamic process. And the things that came to bear during my time, the decision makers, where the agencies were, where the people were, the things we were learning and discovering, the things we could do by law and the things that were illegal. All of those things were fluid. They were fluid. And sometimes we would think we could do something and move one way, and then we discover something that would make us do something else. It was not a process where you kind of knew things all the way. From the very beginning, it was discovering itself. The overall adverse impact was that when the freeway was built, it really took away the pristine nature of the valley, and the processes of Mother Nature, number one, were interrupted. The stream flows were interrupted. The quietness of the areas were interrupted. Any kind of cultural practice that people could go up into the quiet valleys and have a practice either culturally or religiously, those things were impacted. And so, that's generally speaking for all areas, that's the overall impact that needed to be mitigated. Everyone who worked on this project brought aloha with them. They were the passion of the stakeholders who for most of their lives had lived some kind of passion. They never gave up on their responsibilities and their passions, and today I don't believe anybody has lost that yet. my hope is that, you know, in the end result, everybody will win, because everybody who brought responsibility and served it well, it'll all come together, and that's the end result. People are very resilient, and I'm going to differentiate between the culture and the people, because culture sometimes is static in the sense that when we experience culture, we experience the character, the value sets, the things that are of the people. But the thing that makes it dynamic is the people themselves. And if the people are resilient in the things that they believe in and the things that they live, then the culture will be that way, not because the culture is normally that way, but because the people are that way.